Good day, class. So, last time we have discussed about general toxicology. For chapter 7, we are going to discuss about forensic toxicology and alcohol examination. So, forensic toxicology is an interdisciplinary science dealing with the analysis and interpretation of chemical substance in a biological sample for medical legal purposes and the application of toxicology to forensic sciences. The objectives of forensic toxicology includes the following: to qualitatively identify the poison isolated from the sample and carry out quantitative analysis to determine its concentration. So we have two types of analysis or examination being conducted in a forensic toxicology case. So we both have the qualitative examination and the quantitative examination, which have been already discussed in the basic concepts of forensic chemistry. Qualitative examination deals with the identity of the substance present in a sample. So, qualitative is for the identity. And then quantitative analysis refers to the amount or percent purity, amount of the substance or the percent purity of the substance present in a sample to determine its concentration. So that is according to Stewart and Stallman of 1961. The purpose of forensic toxicology examinations is to obtain analytical data on poisons and to apply the information obtained to understand the episodes of poisoning. The absences of poison can be a valuable evidence. The toxicologists also have to express their professional opinion. So they have their professional opinion as to the likely effect of the poisons found in their analysis on a person's behavior and to present their findings in court. So the results of the examinations conducted by the forensic toxicologists are very useful in presentation in court to prosecute a given case or to prosecute a suspect regarding a specific case. The major caseload areas for forensic toxicologists include police cases. These are the toxicological aspect of criminal investigations. And then we also have post-mortem cases. These are analytical studies in support of the medical examiner to determine the cause of death. These are conducted in hospitals, especially when there are unexplained causes of death. Then we also have drug abuse, cases resulting from the use of illegal drugs and the abuse of such. For example, drug overdose. These are the caseload areas. So I will present to you the historical updates in forensic toxicology. So this includes the case of Madame Marie Fortune Lafarge, who is a French woman who has been convicted of murdering her husband through the use of arsenic poisoning in 1840. Her case became notable because it was one of the first trials to be followed by the public through daily newspaper reports. So, nangyari sa trials ni Madam Lafarge ay public trial. She was also the first person who has been convicted largely on direct forensic toxicological evidence. So, because of the forensic toxicological evidence, kaya siya na-prosecute at na-convict. So, parang isa siyang major success sa forensic toxicology cases. However, the questions about her guilt had divided French society to the extent that it is often compared to the better-known Dreyfus affair. So, meron pang nangyari before na tinatawag na case as Dreyfus affair. Then we have Professor Matthew Orfila. He's considered the father of forensic toxicology. He is the physician and chemist who studied the body of Charles Lafarge. Si Charles Lafarge yung husband ni Madame Marie Lafarge for the presence of arsenic using the Marsh test. And then we have James Marsh. He is the Scottish chemist who have invented the Marsh test. This helped solve a murder nearby. He tried to detect arsenic using the old methods. While he was successful, the sample had decomposed and did not convince the jury of the defendant's guilt. Later on, he developed a glass apparatus not only to detect minute traces of arsenic but also measure its quantity. So, si James Marsh ang naka-invent nung Marsh test na tinatawag. At itong Marsh test naman, yung ginamit ni Professor Matthew Orfila sa pag-examine dun sa nakuha na substances sa katawan ni Charles Lafarge. So we have the evidence of poisoning. We have circumstantial or moral evidence. These are contributed by the circumstances or deduced from various occurrences and facts. For examples, what is the motive for poisoning? And then yung proof of purchase of poison, keeping the dead or the materials used. While, however, circumstantial evidence are not considered to be strong evidence. Then we have symptomatic evidence, which includes the symptoms observed during the poisoning. This is also not conclusive for some diseases. For some diseases may present similar symptoms as those of poisoning. For example, arsenic's vomits or secretion of the body. This alone is not a reliable claim for the poisoning since poison may look like a poisoning like cholera. Alcoholic coma may stimulate diabetic coma. So that is the problem with symptomatic evidence, yung having the same reactions with other medicines or other diseases. Then we have the chemical evidence. These are obtained by chemical analysis of the suspected substance. It may have been decomposed or changed, or it may have been placed after death. So, since nagkakaroon ng metabolism yung katawan natin, kapag nag-intake tayo ng certain chemical or substance, nade-decompose siya into another substance because of the metabolism of our bodies. Then we have post-mortem evidence. These are obtained from an examination of the tissues and organs after death. There are many poisons, however, that do not produce characteristic findings. In addition, the findings may be the same as those produced by diseases. Ito rin yung sinasabi natin kanina. Then we have experimental evidence or physiological tests. These are obtained by administering the suspected substance to some living animal and noting the effect or the symptoms. This alone is not also conclusive because the tolerance may not be the same as in man. However, we may more or less have an idea what the substance is. So, this evidence must be taken together and one cannot depend simply on one or two. So, since they are all not conclusive, kapag pinagsama-sama yung mga circumstantial evidence na nare-recover natin and they both lead to the same fact, they may become a strong evidence kapag sama-sama sila. Pero hindi pwedeng mag-rely sa isa or dalawa lang. Okay. So, in poison investigation, the most important is the sight and smell of the scene. So, sight and smell of the scene. So, kapag nagpa-process na tayo ng isang crime scene na hinihinala na isang poison investigation. So, merong position and appearance of the body, kailangang i-take note. Skin and mouth, lips, rectum, vagina, and the genitals should also be noted. The pupils of the eyes. This also says something about if a person has been poisoned. So, titingnan natin it is contracted or dilated. So, if there is a presence of a different odor, possible marks on the skin as a result of hypodermic needle injections, the hands for the presence of objects. So, pwedeng meron silang nag-grasp sa hand nila na object before death or merong nilagay sa hand nila after the death has occurred. If the fingers do not grasp the object tightly, the body was in death because before the object was placed. Okay, so yan din yung kailangan nating i-note sa pagpaprocess ng crime scene, lalo na sa pagpaprocess ng cadaver mismo. So we also have food poisoning, katulad yung na-explain before dun sa cassava cake poisoning or cassava food poisoning. So we have symptoms of poisoning appear soon after a drink or meal has been taken. The investigator should thoroughly see that all liquids, foods, and medicines on the premises are preserved. These can be found at the medicine cabinet, pantry, refrigerator, and even in the reused containers. If many hours have elapsed after the meal was ingested, the possibility of food as the source of poison may be eliminated. This is due to metabolism also. Usually kapag nagkakandak din ng autopsy examination, yung mga medical legal officers natin and doctors, tinetake note nila kung ano yung laman ng stomach or stomach contents. Kung madami, konti, may alcohol. At saka usually nakikita nila doon kung fully na-process na yung food or na-digest na yung food. And sometimes nakikita pa nila doon kung ano yung nakain ng victim or ng cadaver na in-examine nila. When symptoms of poisoning occur, the investigator can reasonably assume that the victim had taken the poison from half to 1 hour before the first symptoms appeared. In corrosive poisons, symptoms appears immediately. One way of proving poisoning is by chemical analysis of stomach contents and body fluids. So, ito yung sinasabi ko sa inyo. Ito usually yung ginagawa sa laboratory, dito sa crime lab or sa forensic unit. Yung medical legal officer na nagkakandak ng autopsy sa isang victim or sa isang cadaver, kinokollect nila yung stomach. If there are instances or evidence that shows poisoning in the body, they collect the stomach contents and yun yung dinadala sa laboratory for toxicological examinations. So we have some hints for the investigator. It is not necessary that the investigator will become an expert on poisons. So since he will have the knowledge and assistance of the medical examiner, the coroner, the toxicologist, or other specialists. So hindi niya kailangan maging expert sa poisons. But it will be of great help for him to know the symptoms of various kinds of poisoning, the amounts of specific poisons that will cause death, and the length of time that may elapse after the poison has been taken before the death occurs. So, since hindi naman kailangan, pero syempre, edge yun ng investigator kung meron siya at least knowledge doon sa mga symptoms ng certain types of poisons. This additional knowledge relative to a poison is helpful. For example, where the poison obtained, its chemical formula, other names such as industrial names, and what the antidote is. Siyempre, since investigator siya, kung meron siyang idea about certain poisons and its effects, mas magkakaroon siya ng way para ma-determine or ma-check yung premises kung ano pa ba yung dapat na i-collect. So, this is a very important hint. A murderer does not use poisons having extreme odors, colors, or taste, as they tend to raise suspicion in the intended victim. A suicide, however, on the other hand, may take any poisonous substance regardless of its odor, color, or taste. So, since yung suicide, yung victim na nag-decide mag-suicide, parang impulsive lang yung decision nila na mag-suicide. So, whatever is the poison available, yun lang yung tinitake nila. Wala silang pakialam kung malakas ba yung odor niyan, ano ba yung color, ano ba yung taste. Whereas, kapag premeditated yung murder, syempre, pag-iisipan yan mabuti ng isang murderer. Yung pipili siya ng poison na hindi magsususpetsa yung lalasunin niya para ma-intake niya yon. So, yan yung difference. Isa yung hints para sa mga investigator. So, we have the major classifications of poison for toxicological examinations. We have volatile, non-volatile, metallic, and ions, pesticides, and other miscellaneous poisons. For the preservation of evidence, the evidence as biological in origin, this can be preserved in plastic or glass container and stored in freezer 10 degrees Celsius or below. They can be discarded according to the laboratory policies and SOP. So, it depends on the policies of the laboratory kung paano paano i-discard yung mga biological substances. I'm not sure I don't think na pinapresent pa sa court yung mismong, for example, the stomach contents itself. Siguro, kung napicturean lang yon, that will be enough for evidence to be presented in court since the same stomach contents will all be used up during examination because they will be examined using extraction technique, and every single substance of the stomach content specimen will be used up. Okay. So, for alcohol intoxication, so a person is said to suffer from alcohol intoxication if the quantity of alcohol he consumed exceeds the individual's tolerance for alcohol and produces behavioral or physical abnormalities. So, in other words, the person's mental and physical abilities are impaired. The person can't function and certainly should not be operating a motor vehicle. It acts on the forebrain, then to the central and rear portion are affected. So, meron, for different individuals, we have, since we have different rates of metabolism, we also have different tolerance levels for alcohols and other drugs or other substances that we take inside our bodies. So, yung intoxication na sinasabi with alcohol, kapag nag-intake sila ng alcohol, and na-exceed yung tolerance level nila, nagkakaroon sila ng behavior and physical abnormalities. Yung behavioral, minsan slurred speech, tapos nawawala na sila ng inhibitions nila. And then yung physical abnormalities, minsan kapag may allergy, parang namamagana yung mukha nila, nagpapantal-pantal. It depends on the physical reactions of each individual with alcohol. So, we have the facts about alcohol. So, it reduces performance during tasks that require mental and physical agility. It is also considered as the number 1 date rape drug. It alters perceptions and lowers inhibitions. It impairs judgment and causes amnesia blackouts. It is less likely to engage in physical resistance and verbal assertiveness when confronted with unwanted sexual advances. So, less effective of removing themselves from an unsafe situation. For example, dun sa mga usually kasi na nabibiktim ng mga rape and sexual advances, usually are the female population. So, kapag nakapag-intake sila ng alcohol exceeding their tolerance level, nare-reduce yung mental ability nila and the physical agility as well. So, it is considered, alcohol intake is considered as the number one date rape drug. Although, meron ng lumabas na bagong date rape drug, yung nilalagay sa, date rape drug na nilalagay sa, usually sa drinks ng mga supposedly victims na walang, it is colorless, odorless, and hindi mo talaga mapapansin na merong something na nilagay sa drink mo. It is called the GHB, gamma hydroxy butyraldehyde or butanol. And aside from that, alcohol is also considered as the number one date rape drug because of the physical impairments that it produces, especially when tolerance level has been exceeded. So, na-alter din yung perceptions and nalo-lower yung inhibitions. So, instead na hindi sana yun gagawin, parang go lang siya ng go, yung intoxicated with alcohol. And then judgment, nagkakaroon na rin ng amnesia blackouts, hindi na maalala kung ano yung nangyari during the time na intoxicated siya ng alcohol. And then, hindi siya makaresist physically kapag meron nang nang-aabuso sa kanya. Yung kinoconsider natin as lasing. And then, syempre, hindi na nila maialis yung sarili nila sa situation na unsafe sa kanila. Especially kung mag-isa lang sila at walang tutulong sa kanila. Or, pwedeng hindi lang siya mag-isa, but pareho silang lasing, so hindi sila makalaban pareho. So, kailangan maging very, very careful tayo sa mga pinipili na kainuman or just in case na nag-engage tayo sa mga ganong activities. And let us be sure that we keep ourselves safe and we always know who we are dealing with. Okay? So, that is just a reminder, especially sa mga kabataan ngayon, to take care of yourselves. And yung kasing pag-inom na yan, hindi naman din natin maalis. Pero, pwede naman tayo mag-inom na asosyalan lang, ganon. Yung hindi talaga tayo magpapakalasing. Or, katulad nga ng tinatawag nila na, hindi ko na maalala kung ano yung tawag dun sa kapag sobrang maglalasingan talaga kayo. So, let us not engage ourselves with those situations, especially kung hindi natin kakilala yung mga kasama natin. But, also, I would like to stress out na kahit kakilala natin yung mga kasama natin, minsan hindi na rin may iwasan yung maging abusive sila sa atin, especially kapag nandun tayo sa isang situation. So, para makaiwas tayo sa disgrasya and sa mga unwanted na abuses, ialis natin yung sarili natin sa mga ganong situations. This is just a reminder, especially for the girls, to take care of yourself and know your limits as well also. Okay? Just a friendly reminder lang from your friendly neighborhood. Okay? So, next. So, let us now proceed with the metabolism of alcohol. So, when you drink alcohol, it goes directly from the stomach into the bloodstream immediately. Immediate siyang nagpo-proceed kasi very volatile yung alcohol. Just like, siguro, gawin nating example yung alcohol na ginagamit natin pang disinfect. So, kapag mapansin nyo, madali siyang matuyo. Even hindi natin siya patuyuin sa basahan or sa towel. Kasi very volatile siya. Ibig sabihin, madaling mag-evaporate, madali siyang matuyo. Madali siyang mahalo doon sa bloodstream natin. So, this is why you typically feel the effects of alcohol very quickly, especially if you have not eaten in a while. So, the concentration increases up to the maximum level and post-absorption occurs and drops again to zero. So, may effect din yung kapag walang laman yung tiyan natin or hindi tayo nakakain before tayo nag-inom. So, may effect din yun, mas madali tayong malalasing. So, the alcohol in the gastrointestinal tract, the ethanol is lipid soluble. Ethanol is usually the alcohol used in making liquors. So, it is rapidly absorbed and needs no digestion. On an empty stomach, 20% is absorbed directly across the walls of an empty stomach and can reach the brain in 1 minute. So, mas mabilis siya kapag empty yung stomach natin. And then, on a full stomach, food has less chance of coming into contact with stomach walls and being absorbed. Thus, influence on brain is slightly delayed. So, nade-delay yung, kung 1 minute agad-agad nare-reach ang brain on an empty stomach, when you're intoxicated with alcohol, kapag may full naman yung stomach mo with food, nagbibigay siya ng less chance or nade-delay niya yung pag-reach ng alcohol intoxication mo sa brain. Because carbohydrate slows the absorption, high-fat snack slows peristalsis. Peristalsis is the retention of alcohol in the stomach. Okay, so it is a great advantage for you if you have eaten before you will engage in drinking alcohol. So we have other factors affecting the rate of absorption. So we have the total time taken to consume the alcohol. So the longer the absorption, the lesser the blood alcohol concentration. So ibig sabihin nito, huwag tayong magmabilis sa pag-inom natin. So kung konti-konti lang, parang yung katulad ng sinabi ko kanina, sosyalan lang, para lang minsan kasi sa practice natin, parang mas masaya yung sosyalan kapag minsan may konting inuman. So, hindi naman tayo kailangan agad dumaklak ng isang bote agad-agad sa isang bagsakan lang. So, dapat sosyalan lang, unti-unti lang yung inom. Yung para lang makasabay ka sa kanila and then makapag-kwentuhan, ganyan-ganyan. Pero hindi naman kailangan magmadali because the longer the absorption, nalilesen yung blood alcohol concentration. Bakit ulit? Because of the volatility of alcohol. So, kapag konti-konti lang yung concentration or konti-konti lang yung amounts, mas mabilis siyang mailalabas din sa katawan natin. Okay? The alcohol content of the beverage. So, it depends yan. So, beer is less absorbed because of the carbohydrates present in it. So, depende sa mga iniinom natin. Merong gin, merong beer. Iba-iba sila ng content ng alcohol. Merong mga mild lang yung content ng alcohol. Meron namang matataas yung content. So, it depends. So, amount consumed also, syempre, kung gaano karami ba yung nainom mo. The quantity and type of food present in the stomach at the time of drinking. So, pati yung quantity at saka yung type ng food na present sa stomach mo, meron ding effect sa pag-absorb ng alcohol sa katawan natin. Okay? So, ano ba yung nangyayari sa alcohol kapag na-intake na natin siya sa body natin? So, na-absorb siya sa bloodstream, napupunta sa dugo. Na-distribute siya sa body's water. So, pwedeng sa fat, bones, and hair is low in water. So, less in alcohol siya. Pero, yung brain natin, pati yung vitreous humor, which is nasa eyes natin, in the eyes, ay rich in water. So, mas madami siyang na-absorb na alcohol. Yung elimination naman niya, pwedeng oxidation. No? Oxidize to carbon dioxide and water through the acetaldehyde to acetic acid using alcohol dehydrogenase in the liver. So, kaya ang kadalasan kapag manginginom na hindi naman tama na yung pag-inom, ang nasisira is yung liver. Because yung liver natin ang nagpo-produce ng alcohol dehydrogenase na nag-oxidize ng alcohol sa blood natin. So, siya yung nag-work para ma-eliminate yung alcohol sa katawan natin. Kapag sobrang dami, nababurn out din yung liver natin. At doon nagsisimula yung pagkasira ng liver. Okay, so yung excretion naman niya, pwedeng sa breath, kasi nga volatile siya, lumalabas siya as gas. Pwede rin sa urine and perspiration. That is why madalas na umiihi yung mga taong nagiinom. And then sa perspiration, kaya naaamoy din natin amoy alak minsan dahil sa perspiration nila, lumalabas din yung alcohol. So we have the so-called blood alcohol level or BAL. This is the amount of alcohol in the bloodstream. This is recorded in milligrams of alcohol per 100 milliliters of blood or milligrams percent. So the BAL of 0.10 means that 1 over 10 or of 1% or 1 over 1,000 of your total blood content is alcohol. So ganyan kataas yung BAL na 0.10. So this depends on the amount of blood which will increase with weight, amount of alcohol you consume over time. The faster you drink, the higher your BAL as the liver, please listen to this, as the liver can only handle about a drink per hour. The rest builds up in your bloodstream. So, hindi naman kayang ma-process lahat ng liver yung mga alcohol na ini-intake natin. Especially kung ang bilis nating uminom, tapos ang dami agad nating naiinom. Kaya nagkakaroon ng pagkasira yung liver. So, this is the table showing the blood alcohol concentration which is directly proportional to the alcohol concentration in the brain. So, ito yung sinasabi na 0.10 na yung concentration kanina. So, ito na yung effect niya sa behavior ng isang tao. So, pwedeng noisy, embarrassing behavior, mood swings, reduction in reaction time. So, kapag 0.02, medyo light pa lang yung effect ng alcohol sa katawan. Hindi pa masyadong nananotice. Nagkakaroon pa lang, parang nagiinit pa lang siya. And then, pag 0.05, noticeable relaxation, nagre-relax na siya. Less alert, less self-focused, and then, nagkakaroon na ng impairment sa coordination. Yung 0.08 is the drunk driving limit. Meron na kasing definite impairment in coordination and judgment. And then, dito nga sa 0.10, nakakahiya na yung behavior niya, possibly embarrassing behavior. 0.15, clearly drunk. 0.20 to 0.25, typically feel sleepy to sleep. So, nakakatulog na minsan. Depende pa rin sa reaction ng katawan. Iba-iba yung mga tao, hindi lahat nagiging ganun yung reaction. Yung iba, at 0.30, nawawala ng malay. And sometimes, at 0.40 BAL, namamatay na yung tao. Depende sa reaction ng katawan. Ganon din sa 0.50, humihinto na yung paghinga and eventually die. So, depending on this table, makikita natin na ang most reliably pleasurable effect ng alcohol ay kapag ang BAL natin is from 0.3 to 0.5 only. Pleasurable pa siya yung effect niya. But, kapag lumagpas na siya dito sa mga levels na to, nagiging deadly na and very, parang nagkakaroon na ng irresponsible behavior. Dangerous na yung nagiging effect. Okay? So, there are certain tests na kinakonduct to determine if drunk ba yung driver, especially. So, we have the field sobriety test. Ito yung mga preliminary test performed to ascertain the degree of suspect's physical impairment. So, a positive result to this test requires the submission of blood for blood alcohol concentration examination. So, ang field sobriety test, meron siyang psychophysical test and preliminary breath test. Okay, so the psychophysical test includes the horizontal gaze nystagmus, one-leg stand, walk, and turn. So, yung horizontal gaze nystagmus is uncontrollable and unaware that jerking is happening as the eye moves toward the side. So, at 0.10 blood alcohol concentration, jerking begins at 450 to the side. So, if it is greater than 0.10, jerking occurs at smaller angle. And then with drug use, usually with PCP, barbiturates, and depressants, it also causes nystagmus. So, nystagmus yung ino-observe dito, which is the jerking. Because it is uncontrollable and the person is unaware of it. Then, we also have the one-leg stand and the walk. So, this is a divided attention task. So, ibig sabihin, kapag intoxicated na siya with alcohol, hindi na siya nakakapag-focus. And then, the ability to execute 2 or more instructions at one time. Walk and turn. The suspect walks a straight line, touching heel to toe at 9 steps. And then, turn around and repeat the process. So, ito yung kailangan nilang gawin para makita if meron ng impairment ng balance dun sa suspect. Sa field lang siya ginagawa. Okay, kapag nag-fail dun dito sa mga field sa variety test, nagkakandak na sila nagpapakuha na sila ng blood to be submitted in the laboratory for blood alcohol concentration examination. So, breathalyzer was first developed in 1954 by Police Captain Robert Frank Porkenstein of Indiana State Police. This instrument is based on the reaction of potassium dichromate with ethanol and sulfuric, giving chromium sulfate, potassium sulfate, and acetic acid and water. The chromate was measured using spectroscopic principles. But although kung makikita, kung sa description nitong breathalyzer dito, mapapansin natin na very complex yung chemical reaction na nangyari. But yung breathalyzer na ginagamit is a compact and handy device na nagbibigay na usually ng digital reading ng concentration ng chromate na na-turn because of the reaction of the blood alcohol with potassium dichromate. Okay? And then, kapag nag-submit na sa laboratory ng blood sample, so magkakandak na ng blood alcohol examination. Ang ginagamit ng mga chemist sa blood alcohol examination is the Conway method. Ginagamit din dito na reagent yung potassium dichromate. And the result is a green coloration. So, gumagamit ng ng parang Petri dish or merong Conway dish na tinatawag. Tapos, ilalagay doon yung blood and then yung potassium dichromate. Kapag nagkaroon ng green coloration, it means positive sa blood alcohol yung sample na sinubmit. And then, we will discuss about hangover. So, yan usually yung naririnig natin kapag masakit ang ulo sa umaga, pagkatapos ng inuman, kapag hindi makapasok, sasabihin may hangover, di makapunta sa school, may hangover. Alcohol is diuretic. So, nagli-lead siya ng dehydration. Kaya kailangan, in-encourage na kapag umiinom, dapat uminom ng maraming tubig din. Kasi diuretic nga yung alcohol, kaya tayo ihi ng ihi. So, dehydration causes many of the symptoms of a hangover. Katulad ng headache, loss of concentration, and fatigue. So, parang feeling natin pagod na pagod tayo, samantalang nag-good time lang naman tayo last night. That is because of the dehydration, which is an effect of the alcohol intoxication. So, that is what we call the hangover. So, our muscles don't perform well, and since our blood decreases in volume, becoming thicker and more viscous because of the loss of water, it is less able to carry dissolved gases and its flow is slowed. So, hindi rin tayo makapag-isip ng mabuti at masakit ang ulo natin dahil nagiging mas viscous yung dugo natin, hindi nakapag-deliver ng oxygen ng tama sa brain natin. So, the speed at which you eliminate nitrogen and other gases is also reduced. Okay? So, how can we avoid this so-called hangover? So, before we go sa inuman, be sure na nakakain tayo before tayo makipag-inuman. This will slow the absorption of alcohol. Pero meron kasing iba dyan na, hindi, mas okay yung dating sa akin pagka hindi ako nakakain eh. Pero if you want to take care of yourself and have fun at the same time, So, ito yung mga tips para maka-avoid tayo ng hangover. So, we have to eat something before because fats and carbohydrates are the best in slowing absorption. So, yung sugar intake naman, it prevents hangovers. So, kailangan ito yung mga kainin natin. Cakes and pastries are the party food that has lots of all three. So, carbohydrate snacks slow the absorption and high-fat snacks slows peristalsis or the alcohol retention in the stomach. So, kailangan before tayo makipag-inuman, kumain muna tayo ng cake or yung medyo matatamis na mga pastries. Okay? Or kahit high-fat snacks, which are also very dangerous to our health, but since it will help us to avoid hangover, pwede na rin natin silang i-intake. So one of the tips also to avoid hangover is to choose to drink clear alcohol because dark alcohol tends to contain a substance called congeners. So these types of alcohols are more likely to cause hangover symptoms. So we have white wine, vodka, light rum. These are the examples of clear alcohols. And then red wine, dark rum, sherry, brandy are high in congeners. So ito yung dapat nating iwasan. And then beer is in between, so hindi natin alam kung white siya or dark. Because it depends on how dark it is. So, merong beer na mas dark, mas mataas ang congeners nun. So, pipiliin nyo yung beer na medyo light yung color. So, ito naman yung pag-treat sa hangover. So, this is a big no-no. Do not drink coffee, tea, cola, and chocolate because these all contain caffeine, which also acts as diuretic. So, mas lalong magiging mataas yung effect ng hangover natin. Any food or drink that has 8 or more grams of carbohydrate per 100 ml will make your body take water into the gut to dilute it. So, the simple solution, drink water at the same time. So you have to drink lots of water, especially during the time that you are taking in alcohol. Drink lots of water. And then alternatives, basta wag tayo mag-drink ng coffee, tea, cola, mag-eat ng chocolate. Parang this has become yung parang opposite situation kasi minsan yung mga nagiinom, akala nila yung coffee ang makakatreat ng hangover nila. Yun pala hindi. So, dapat water lang talaga. Then, we have other alternatives. Kung ayaw nyo ng puro tubig, so pwedeng mag-eat ng soup. Pwede mag-drink ng apple juice, fruit squashes, and isotonic sports drinks. And even Gatorade. So, beware of juices and soups which causes dehydration. Like yung tea. For example, C2, mga ganyan. Juices siya, pero since tea siya, diuretic pa din siya. Siguro fruit juices ang mas piliin natin. Apple juice, yan. Cranberry, yan. So, eat tomato. It will help in treating the hangover. So, that is the end of the presentation for our chapter 7. This is included in your final examination, also with chapter 8. So, the coverage of our final examination will be chapter 6, which is the general toxicology. Chapter 7, forensic toxicology and alcohol intoxication. And chapter 8, which I will discuss later, the CBRN, chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear weapons of destruction. Okay?
It's hard when you only have 2 chess pieces.
Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, please feel free to message me and to ask me your clarifications and questions para ma-i-discuss pa natin ng mas maayos. Okay? Thank you and goodbye.